Bought a dream house, but parents moved in and set their own rules. I sold the house after they refused to leave, and now I'm selfish. So I calmly cut them out of my life. At 33, I bought my dream house. 4 bedrooms, 2 garages, a huge yard, everything I'd been working towards for years. I'm in IT, and while the long hours and constant learning can be brutal, it's been good for me financially. This house wasn't just a purchase. It was a symbol of the freedom I'd been craving for years. But then, as if I'd rung an invisible bell, my parents stepped in with a curveball I never saw coming. When I told them about the house, they were ecstatic to ecstatic. My mother was practically glowing. She said, "Finally, we're all going to live like people." My dad chimed in with something about how he'd be able to help fix up the place and how good it would be for them to be around me again. At first I thought they were joking. But as the conversation continued, it became clear that they were planning to move in. I tried to make excuses. "Oh, it's not that big of a place," I said. "You have your home, and you love it there." They laughed, waved me off, and started talking about packing. They didn't even ask me, they told me. My dad said something about families sticking together. And my mom kissed my cheek and said, "Don't worry, Tommy, you won't even know we're there." Tommy. 33 years old, and she still calls me Tommy like I'm in kindergarten. Looking back, I don't know why I didn't push back harder. Maybe because they'd always been good to me in their own way. My childhood wasn't bad. My parents weren't abusive or neglectful, they were just too much. Overbearing, controlling, overly affectionate in a way that felt stifling as I got older. But we were close, I guess. Close enough that it felt impossible to say no. So I gave in. 2 weeks after I got the keys, they moved in. 2 weeks. I hadn't even had time to pick out furniture for the living room, but there they were, unpacking their boxes and settling in like it was their house. My mom immediately took over the kitchen, rearranging things I'd just put away. My dad started talking about building shelves in the garage. They even brought over their old cat, which I had specifically told them I didn't want in the house because I'm mildly allergic. The first couple of days were manageable. I tried to convince myself that it wouldn't be so bad. But it quickly became clear that my parents didn't see me as a grown man with my own life. To them, I was still their little boy living under their roof, even if the mortgage said otherwise. My mother would kiss me on the cheek every morning before work, call me Tommy, and ask if I wanted her to pack my lunch. My dad would lecture me about how I spend my money and remind me to save, just in case. The worst part? They made rules. Actual rules. "Don't come home after midnight, Tommy," my mother said one night. "It's disrespectful to the house. The house I paid for." I thought about defying her right then and there, but I didn't. Instead, I bit my tongue and told myself I'd deal with it later. That was my first mistake. And then, a few weeks later, Jessica came into the picture. That's when things really started to spiral. Jessica was amazing, smart, funny, driven, and beautiful in an effortless way that made you wonder how she stayed so grounded. We'd been dating for a few months when I bought the house, and things were getting serious. Serious enough that I started thinking about proposing. Of course, I wanted her to see my new place. I was proud of it, and I thought maybe it could be our place in the future. So I invited her over one weekend. As soon as she walked through the door, I knew it was a mistake. My mom, who'd been hovering in the living room like she'd been waiting for this very moment, jumped in before I could properly introduce Jessica. "Oh, you must be Jessica," my mom said, practically shaking her hand. "We've heard so much about you. You're so cute." Jessica looked at me, obviously surprised, but smiled politely. "Thank you. It's so nice to meet you." It wasn't nice for long. My mom immediately launched into a barrage of questions, rapid fire, without giving Jessica a chance to breathe. "How old are you? Where do you work? Do you cook? Tommy likes his food a certain way, you know. Do you think about having children? Tommy loves children. Do you have a big family? What do your parents do?" I tried to jump in, but my mom just waved me off, like I was a bystander in my own life. Then my dad joined in, shaking Jessica's hand and asking about her car, her job, her intentions. With me like we were in a 1950s sitcom. Jessica held it together, but I could tell she was uncomfortable. And just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, my mom asked a question that made my stomach turn. So where do you see yourself living in the future? Hopefully not too far away from us. Tommy is very close to his family. I didn't even have time to defuse the situation before Jessica, bless her, tried to answer. Well, I guess that depends on. Oh, nonsense. My mother interrupted. Tommy would never move far away. We're too important to him. Jessica looked at me again and I could see the confusion on her face. This is your life? Her eyes seemed to ask. It didn't stop there. Every time Jessica and I tried to have a moment alone, my parents would lurk. My mom would go into the kitchen while Jessica and I were talking, pretending to clean something that didn't need cleaning. My dad had to fix something in the garage the whole time we were sitting in the living room. At one point, we tried to sneak upstairs for some privacy, but as soon as we closed the door to my room, my mom knocked. Tommy, she said sweetly, I can hear you up here. Just keep it down, okay? Jessica looked embarrassed. I was furious. I opened the door and told my mom we were just talking, but the damage was done. That night, after Jessica left, she called me and said, Tom, I really like you, but what's up with your parents? Do they live with you? I couldn't lie. I explained the situation, downplaying it as much as I could, but she wasn't stupid. She told me she needed time to think about where this relationship was going. I felt like a total failure. Here I was, a grown man with a good job, a great house, and a woman I wanted to marry, and I couldn't even have a life of my own because my parents treated me like a child. Over the next few weeks, I tried to set limits with them. I told my mother to stop asking Jessica a million questions. I told my dad to give us some space when she was over. But it was like talking to a brick wall. She's just not used to how close we are as a family, my mother said. She'll come around. She needs to know that we're looking out for you, my dad added. Jessica didn't come around. Instead, she began to pull away. I don't blame her. Who wants to date a guy whose parents practically live in his back pocket? I lost her, and I lost myself. But every time I tried to ask my parents to leave, they played the victim. Where would we go, Tommy? This is our home now. We gave you everything and this is how you repay us? I was trapped in my own dream house. Things came to a boiling point about a year after my parents moved in. By then, I was walking on eggshells in my own home. I hated coming home from work because I knew there would be some new reason for them to treat me like I was 12 again. Jessica and I were hanging on by a thread. I'd convinced her to keep seeing me, but it was always on her terms at her place, never mine. She said it was because she didn't want to deal with my parents, and honestly, I couldn't blame her. One Saturday, I finally convinced her to come over for dinner. I thought if my parents could just act normal for one night, maybe Jessica would start to feel like things could work between us. So I talked to my parents beforehand, begged them to let me handle the evening, and asked them to give us some space. They agreed. Or at least they pretended to. The night started out fine. Jessica came over and I cooked dinner while we talked in the kitchen. For a moment, I almost allowed myself to believe that this might work. Then my mom walked in. Tommy, she said, completely ignoring Jessica. I noticed you left some of your laundry in the dryer. Do you want me to fold them for you? No, Mom, I said through clenched teeth. I'll take care of it later. Are you sure? She pressed. It's no trouble. Jessica gave me a look and I felt my stomach sink. I told my mom again to leave it alone, but she stayed there, hovering, as if she couldn't take the hint. Then my dad joined us. He didn't say much, he just grabbed a drink from the fridge and leaned against the counter as if he were watching. The last straw came when Jessica and I finally sat down to eat. My mom sat at the table with us, uninvited, and started asking Jessica more of her invasive questions. So how much do you make at your job? Mom! I snapped. What? She said innocently. It's just a question. Jessica put down her fork and looked at me. I think I should go, she said quietly. I walked her to the door and apologized profusely, but she was done. She told me she needed space and that she couldn't see a future with someone who couldn't stand up to his own parents. When I went back inside, my mother was waiting for me in the living room. Well, she wasn't very polite, she said. That was it. I lost it. I told them both that they were ruining my life, that I was tired of being treated like a child, and that they needed to leave. Of course, they didn't take me seriously. My mom started crying and said she didn't understand why I was being so mean. My father just shook his head and said, "This is what happens when you let a woman come between you and your family." I stormed upstairs and slammed the door to my room. I felt like a prisoner. Over the next few weeks, I began to look into selling the house. It was a drastic step, but I didn't see any other way out. I knew they would never leave voluntarily, and I couldn't live like this anymore. When I finally broke the news to them, they acted as if I'd just announced I was leaving them in the middle of nowhere. My mom started crying again and asked where they were going to go. My dad called me selfish and said I was throwing away everything they'd done for me. But I didn't care anymore. I was done. After I told them I was selling the house, the atmosphere in the house turned icy. My mom barely spoke to me unless it was to guilt me, and my dad made these passive-aggressive comments like, "I guess family doesn't mean much these days." I ignored them. I had made my decision and I wasn't going to back down this time. The house went on the market a week later, and I listed it for less than it was worth, just to sell it quickly. I wanted out of this situation so badly that I didn't even care about the financial hit. Jessica and I had been talking during this time, and while she wasn't thrilled with everything that had happened, she saw that I was finally taking steps to get my life in order. She told me, "If you follow through with this, I'll know you're serious about us." It was all the motivation I needed. 2 months later I had a buyer. When I told my parents the closing date, my mother burst into tears and said, "Where are we going to go? You're leaving us with nothing." I reminded her that they still owned their old house. They'd rented it when they moved in with me, so all they had to do was move back. But my mother wouldn't hear of it. "This house is too small for us now. And it's in terrible shape because we weren't around to take care of it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They had been in my house a little over a year, and they were acting like it had been decades. My father tried another angle. He said that I was being manipulated by Jessica, that she was turning me against them because she wanted me all to herself. He even said, "One day you're going to regret this, Tommy. When she's gone, who do you think will be there for you? Not her. Us." I wanted to scream. Instead, I calmly but firmly told them that this was happening, and they needed to start packing. For the next few weeks, they dragged their feet. They barely packed anything, and as the moving date approached, they kept acting like I was going to change my mind. My mother would say things like, "You don't really want to do this. You're just upset right now." My dad kept trying to reason with me, saying I'd regret selling the house. But I stood firm. I wasn't just selling the house, I was reclaiming my life. The night before the move, things hit a new low. My mother was crying in the living room, saying she couldn't believe I was kicking them out, after all they had done for me. My dad didn't say much, just sat there with his arms crossed, looking like I had betrayed him in the worst possible way. The next morning I hired movers for them because I knew they wouldn't do it themselves. I told them I'd pay for the first month of cleaning and repairs at their old house so they could get settled. But that was it. No more hand-holding. No more guilt. When they left, my mother didn't even say goodbye. She just walked out, sniffling, while my dad muttered, "You're going to regret this." As the movers pulled away, I stood in the empty driveway and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: relief. With my parents gone and the house sold, I packed up my own things and moved to another state. I wanted a clean slate, a place where I wouldn't be haunted by memories of the past year or risk my parents showing up unannounced. Jessica and I chose a city where either of us had family. It was a bold move, but I felt it was necessary. I was tired of living under someone else's control, and I wanted to build a life that was truly mine. The day we arrived at our new apartment, we sat on the floor and ate takeout from the containers because we hadn't unpacked yet. It was quiet, just the two of us, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Jessica smiled at me and said, "This is good, Tom. This is where we start again." And so we did. The first few weeks were hard, adjusting to a new city, a new routine, and a new way of life. But it was also exciting. I didn't have anyone breathing down my neck, questioning my decisions, or telling me how to live my life. I could finally focus on what I wanted to do. Jessica moved in with me a month later, and it was like night and day compared to my old situation. She wasn't just my friend, she was my partner. We made decisions together, shared responsibilities, and actually respected each other's boundaries. As time went on, my parents tried to reach out. My mom called a few times, leaving long, emotional voicemails about how much she missed me. My dad sent a few texts, mostly guilt-ridden messages about family loyalty and how I was throwing it all away. At first I felt bad. They weren't bad people. They just didn't know how to let go. But then I remembered the constant invasions of privacy, the manipulative guilt trips, and the way they tried to sabotage my relationship with Jessica. I made a decision. I wasn't going to let them back into my life. Not yet, and maybe not ever. I sent one last message to both of them. It wasn't dramatic or emotional. I simply said, "I need space to build my life. I hope you can respect that. Please don't contact me for the time being." I didn't block their numbers, but I did ignore the messages that came after that. They were angry at first, calling me selfish and ungrateful. Then they tried to make me feel guilty, saying they'd done everything for me. Finally, the messages stopped. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was living for myself. A year passed, and life was finally the way I had always imagined it would be. Jessica and I had settled into our new city, and we got married in a small, private ceremony, just the two of us. No guests, no drama, no family trying to take over. It was perfect. Work was going well, and for the first time I could really enjoy the fruits of my labor. I didn't feel like I was constantly looking over my shoulder or walking on eggshells. Jessica and I were even talking about starting a family, something I'd never felt like I could even consider before. One night, as we sat on the couch watching some random show, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from my mother. I hadn't heard from her or my dad in months. After I'd asked them for space, they'd gone silent, which I'd assumed meant they were angry or had given up trying to reach me. The message was simple. "Tommy, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but can we talk? Just a video call. Please." At first, I didn't know how to feel. Part of me wanted to ignore it and move on. But something about the tone of her message felt different, less guilty, more genuine. After thinking about it and talking with Jessica, I decided to respond. We scheduled the call for the following evening. I wasn't sure what to expect, but when the call connected, I saw my parents sitting together on the couch in their old house. They looked different. My mother's usual over-the-top energy was gone, replaced by a kind of quiet humility. My dad, usually so stubborn and stoic, looked almost sheepish. "Tommy," my mother began, her voice soft. "We want to say we're sorry. Really sorry. We've had a lot of time to think, and we realize we made mistakes, big ones." My father chimed in. "We were selfish, trying to hold on to you when you were ready to live your own life. We didn't see it then, but we see it now. We were overstepping boundaries, and it wasn't fair to you. Or to Jessica." I didn't say anything at first. I just let her talk. My mother continued. "We were so used to being needed by you, and I don't think we knew how to let go. But it wasn't right, and we're ashamed of how we treated you. You were right to ask for space." I sat there stunned. I had spent so long resenting them that I never thought they'd actually get it. But they did. "We're not asking you to come back," my father said. We We want to be a part of your life again, even if it's from a distance. If you'll let us. For the first time in years, I saw my parents as just people flawed, trying their best, and finally willing to admit when they were wrong. I took a deep breath and said, "I forgive you." The relief on their faces was immediate. My mother even teared up a little, but for once she didn't overdo it. We agreed to keep things simple, occasional phone calls, life updates, and no pressure. It wasn't going to be like before, and that was okay. After the call ended, Jessica hugged me and said, "This took a lot of courage. For all of you. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was a new beginning. And for the first time, I felt like we could finally build a relationship based on mutual respect, something I'd never thought possible." Life moved on, as it always does. My parents stayed in their old house and we stayed in ours. They became more like the parents I needed them to be, supportive but not overbearing, present but not invasive. And for the first time, I didn't feel like Tommy, the little boy who needed to be taken care of. I was Tom, the man who had built his own life, and I could finally share it with them on my terms. The past was behind me, and the future? That was up to me.